with Kari Black on our TV. So I'm very pleased to recognize them. I also want to acknowledge Air Force Reserve. They've been our title sponsor for the women and the men's tournament, and great people. And I know we've had we've offered a free ticket when somebody, a veteran, buys a ticket, and we think that that's a worthy thing that Air Force Reserve is working with us on that, and we're very pleased. Dickey's Arena, an incomparable place. You've all seen it. You all know I don't know that there's a nicer arena in the country. Certainly, it's among the best. And Matt Homan and his staff, Stephanie Myers has been his point person. They just do an unbelievable job. I want to give a shout out to them. Also, congratulate the UCF women's team on their championship. Coach Abe, Katie Abrahamson Henderson done a great job at that program, and again, I'm pleased to mention them. We've got really two terrific semifinal games today. Tulane Ron Hunter's just done a spectacular job, as you know, with Tulane. It should be an interesting game today. Houston, not sure what their seed will be, but it should be intense. Kelvin Sampson, as you know, is our coach of the year, and he's earned it. This is one of his great coaching jobs, losing the players he lost to. Draymond and Marcus, that's a big deal. And he still managed to bring that team through to a regular season championship. And we'll have them poised to have a good run in the NCAA tournament again. Memphis SMU, that's in some ways the game of the day. Memphis is playing probably as well as anyone right now. You saw, yesterday what they can do, the athleticism. They've really come around. Things have really started to gel for them. I did a double take, seeing Larry Brown on the bench, also as helping coach the team. As you know, very interesting dynamic today. He had been the SMU coach for a number of years and developed that program, and had had Moody Magic really rocking. So it's going to be an interesting dynamic today. SMU, as you know, finished second in the regular season. We think they're a tournament team. I don't think there's any question in my mind that they are. They've obviously got something they're going to try to prove today and try to get to the championship game and possibly even get an automatic seed, automatic bid. But I think they deserve one anyway. I think we should be a 3-bid league. So anyway, I'm happy to answer questions, but thrilled to have you here. Glad you're here to enjoy it. Good weather today. Finally, I went out for a walk yesterday. It seemed like it was 10 degrees wind chill. I felt like I was back in New England. But anyway, happy to answer questions. Chuck, I don't know how you want to do that, but
take questions now. Raise your hand in the room. We'll get a microphone over to you.
Hey, Mike, Joe Hoy, Dallas Morning News.
Oh, Joe, yeah, how are you?
Yeah, good to see you.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, a couple coaches throughout this tournament have kind of voiced a little bit of, feelings of disrespect from the rest of the country when it comes to how the AAC is looked at from a tournament and projection standpoint. I'm just curious what your thoughts are on, how the American fits in on an overall respect level from a tournament perspective.
Yeah, Joseph, I don't think there's any question about that. And I'm not sure why, to be honest with you, because this conference, if you look at what we've done in the tournament, it's been pretty impressive. And you look at conferences that have gotten more bids than we have, and they haven't done as well in the tournament. Last year we had a Final Four team. When UConn was in the league, we won the national championship. We've had Sweet 16 teams. We've had an Elite 8 team. A few years ago, you may recall, Houston lost that heartbreaker to Michigan, and Michigan goes to the championship game. Houston might have. Cincinnati had an unbelievable team that year, and then somehow lost that 23-point lead. I'm not sure how it happened. They've been having watched it. And Cincinnati was a perennial, tournament team. A few years ago, Houston takes in the Sweet 16, takes Kentucky right to the wire, leading by 3 with 48 seconds left against a top Kentucky team. We all remember UCF almost beating Zion Williamson and Duke, and it should have been a couple of bad bounces or they would have won the game. And think about that. These are tremendous performances by teams that are really good teams. The one thing, the middle of our league, certainly, I don't think has gotten the respect. Sure, some teams are up and down. They don't, their records are not, 25 and 4, but they are good, solid teams, and they've upset people during the year. I think, we were a new conference 10 years ago. We were reinvented. I think that had something to do with it. You may recall the first year, SMU should have been a tournament team. All the pundits had them not only in the tournament, but a fairly decent seed, and they didn't make it. and they had an outstanding team. So anyway, I guess you just have to keep fighting. It's like football, you know, you don't have that G5, P5 divide in basketball. You get a little of that nonsense, but not much. But you still have to overcome a certain perception. And we're not in the Northeast either. A lot of the writers, I guess, are based in the Northeast, and you know there might be that might be a factor. Although you know you look at basketball in our region where most of our teams are, and it's awfully good basketball, of course. You know, and I tip my hat to the Big 12 for being a tremendous conference. I tip my hat to our conference for being a terrific conference. Let's see what we do again in the tournament this year. You know, we've shown that we can play with anyone. And I think we will this year. I wouldn't be surprised if one of our teams gets pretty far. So anyway, but Joseph, you know, I don't have any great answer for you, you know.
Other questions?
Hey, Mike.
Hey, Joseph, how are you?
Good.
Yeah, two Josephs there.
Yeah, back to back. Mike, do you have an update on just where things stand in terms of the comings and the goings and where you would like to get things resolved in terms of exit dates, that sort of stuff?
Yeah. I thought I'd get that question, and it's a legitimate question. We're talking. You know, we think we've made some progress. A couple of things I would point out, though, that I think are important to note. One is we don't have to talk to anyone. We're not required to. You know, our bylaws are very clear, and we strongly support bylaws being enforced because otherwise college conferences collapse, you know, in terms of how they run and how they operate. So we're a strong proponent of that. And you know, we've told our members, our new members, that they come in when the others leave, you know, in all likelihood. We wouldn't take them unless they had a right to leave. And they're fine with that. They fully understand, and then they're totally on board with that. But we don't have to be talking to the 3 departing schools, but we are. And we are because if they would like to leave early and they've evinced a desire to leave a year early, then we're more than willing to talk to them and see if we can't reach a settlement, which is typically a financial settlement. And that's what we're working on now. Now, have we gotten closer? Yes. Are we there yet? No, we're not. And if we don't get there, then we would just say, fine, we'll stop the negotiations, and you would stay till July 1, 24, which they've said they would do if we ultimately can't reach agreement. I'm hoping we can, if in fact they want to leave, and it does appear that they do. It appears the Big 12 would be willing to take them in 2023, 24, but the Big 12 is, I think, made a point that they're not taking them unless they have a right to go. I think Bob has made those statements. You can check and correct me if I'm wrong. So at this point, the discussions continue. You know, they're all good friends. You know, Chris Pesman has been one of our stalwarts, as you know. John Cunningham, Terry Mahadra hadn't been in the league as long as they've been, but we're trying to do it amicably, and we've had, unfortunately, I've had a little more experience than you would like to have with this. You know, we obviously worked it out with UConn pretty quickly. This one's a little more complicated. You know, you have 3 schools, you know, pretty important schools, have huge impact in football, which is a sport, as you know, that drives so much of this, but they also have significant basketball pedigree as well. So again, we'll keep talking. We hope to get something resolved. If they're going to, if we're going to reach a settlement for them to exit earlier in 23, and again, we have no obligation to do that, and we're happy to have them stay, more than happy to have them stay. It's probably got to be done fairly soon. You know, we've got some deadlines we're looking at with schools that would like to come in potentially and have to give their notices as well. So there's some urgency to our discussions, and that's probably best description, Joseph, at this point I can give you.
Hey, Mike, Sean Pastor, Alice Daly.
Nice to meet you, Sean.
Question sort of on the other end of the transition. Have there been conversations sort of just about the mechanics of the new league setup, divisions, be it football, basketball, Olympic sports?
Yes, we've talked to, we had an AD meeting here, you know, at Dickey's a couple of days ago. We're looking hard at whether we should have divisions going forward with a 14-team conference. And I think, I can't say we've made a decision yet, but we're certainly leaning toward not having divisions. We don't know yet. And the reason is with the new CFP playoff plan coming, I don't know what it's going to be. None of us do, obviously, but it's likely to include be more inclusive, meaning we'll have a better shot than we've had. And I tip my hat to Cincinnati. You know, it's great that they made it, but you know how tough it's been for schools from our conference, and we've had some worthy schools not make it. So basically, you really want your top two teams playing in your championship game in football. In basketball, I think only one conference of note plays divisions. It's just not done in basketball, and we're likely to keep our 18-game conference schedule. It makes sense. It gives us an opportunity to play enough non-conference games to make an impact, which we're still trying to do. As you know, and it's not as easy for us because we don't have some of the challenges in place that some of the other conferences have. We worked on that. We had a smaller one with the SEC. We're working on those. We're going to try to get better non-conference games. But in terms of both football and basketball, I'm just not sure that divisional play really makes as much sense anymore. Now, you've also seen a lot of talk from the other conferences that are 14 teams, and SEC is going to be at 16, whether they want to play divisional play anymore either. And it's obvious, if you have a 3 or 4 loss division champion playing an undefeated champion, and that 4-loss team wins, and you have to be a champion in order to be one of the top 6 in the playoff, for example. Should we have a 12-team playoff? You take a big risk there. We had it in 2018 where we had a 3 or 4 loss Memphis team playing an undefeated UCF team, and you have in this G5 setup, which we hope eventually goes away, you had to be a champion to make the New Year's Day game. So if UCF had lost that game, they were losing by 18 points at halftime or 17 points at halftime. If they had lost that game, we would have been out of luck. So you might think hard about having your top 2 teams play. And we've had those discussions. We haven't made any final decisions yet. And the newcomers, people coming into the league, will have some say in this as well. Obviously, the incumbents, have been talking about it for quite a while. So we'll see where it goes. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to Zoom for the next question. We'll go to Chris Gardner.
Commissioner, how are you? This question for you. Are there plans to have the Basketball Media Day this October in Fort Worth at Dickies Arena?
Right now, we're planning to do virtual media days. We don't know long term what we're going to do, but we think virtual media days work pretty well. It's less disruptive for our teams and coaches, and we were able to get a lot of media, tuning in. Who didn't have to travel, obviously. Obviously media haven't been traveling quite as much as they once did. Some of it was related to the pandemic, but now we think that it might be something that we're going to continue to do this year. That's our plan. It's also our plan for football. But again, it's possible, and again I say it's possible, that in 2023 our new schools will come in, our other 3 will depart. If that's the case, we would likely think hard about having an in-person media day in football and basketball, because you want to get people together if possible. And but for now, we think it's doing it virtually makes sense.
Okay, we'll go to the next one from Terry Davis, please.
How you doing, Commissioner? Hey, a couple years ago, you had the challenge with the SEC. What's the likelihood of doing something else going forward with like the Big East and the Mountain West Conference in basketball?
Well, we're talking to all the conferences, and I'm not gonna, I don't want Carl to get angry with me because he's probably working on some things. Our goal is to play the best possible non-conference schedules we can, and we calibrate those based on where teams are. Obviously, teams have a big say in how they want to go about their non-conference schedules with, help from the conference office. We have a real pro in Carl, and nobody better. And so he's going to be working with other conferences to try to develop some of these challenges, or mini alliances, if you will, to try to, scheduling alliances to try to, generate as many good non-conference games as we can, knowing how important that is. And it's probably in some ways more important for our league, because that's the way you establish credibility. Although I must say, I think we've done pretty well over the years in doing that, and certainly the tournament is proof of that. But we're going to continue to do that. I can't tell you which conferences. Obviously the Mountain West is a very good conference. Others are too. And we'll obviously focus on the best games, and also It's not, I don't want to get into the weeds, but, you have to be sensitive. Coaches sometimes, they prefer to, obviously set up their schedules. And so you got to be careful with, challenges, alliances, it depends on, whom they're going to play and how they want to go about it. So again, that's a cooperative venture, and we'll be working on it though, because we do need to make sure we play the best non-conference schedules we can.
Okay, we're back in the room to Gary.
I'm Gary Smith with
Hi, Gary.
New Orleans Advocate, Times Picayune. Just obviously on the surface, losing the 3 teams you're losing, it looks like the conference is taking a big hit. What has to happen with the 6 new additions to keep this league at the level that it's gotten?
That's a good question. I just harken back to 10 years ago when everybody sort of gave us up for dead, and they really did. And there were some people who clearly thought we had an opportunity there, had a chance, but there weren't as many. And look what we did. And we did it. People said, well, you don't have the marquee value. You don't have this, you don't have that. Well, look what we did. And we'll do it again. What I think, sure. And by the way, I don't sugarcoat it, and I'm not being Pollyanna here. Losing those 3 schools is definitely an initial blow. And these are really, terrific schools. And the 2 things to say about that. One is, yeah, we hate to see them go. But the second thing is, I wish them well. They did a lot for our conference, but our conference did a lot for them, an enormous amount for them. If it weren't for our conference, would they be in the, potentially going to the Big 12? I don't know that they would be, to be honest with you, because our conference gave them an opportunity for incredible exposure with ESPN, with other things that we did as a conference, the way we scheduled. That's a credit to Tom and others. We just did a lot for them. They did a lot for us. Now, having said that, we targeted, schools. And again, I hate this process. I mean, who wants to lose schools? Who wants to have to go after schools? It's just Judy McLeod's a good friend. Others are good friends. Bob Bowlesby and I are still good friends. We get along. You can't take it personally, but it's difficult. Nobody likes it. But what we did is the schools we looked at, and we decided to go a little bigger. We could have stayed at 12. Instead, we went to 14. These are schools with some have already, done a lot. When you look at UAB and what they've done in football and what they represent, and the potential, and UTSA, and then you look at the pedigree in basketball with North Texas right now, and UAB historically, as well as Charlotte, North Carolina, Charlotte. FAU has done a great job. They've hired good coaches. They had Lane Kiffin there building that program. We think in our league, you have to look at potential. You have to look at what you think schools can do, because we relentlessly promote the conference. I mean, we don't promote it when we don't do anything, good, but when we do something good, we make sure people know about it. And we've done that. And I think we've done it successfully. So the question for us becomes, how quickly can we rebuild, and can we get to the point where, we're fighting hard again for that so-called P6 spot, if that whole P5 nonsense continues. We like to get rid of the G5 business and then make it all FBS. That would be really helpful for everyone. It's been pretty damaging to us. It's remarkable what this conference has achieved, even with the obstacle of having that P5, G5, caste system in place. But the last thing I'll say about this is that when you look at these schools, Rice is willing to invest, and they've got the old Southwest Conference pedigree. And you wake up the echoes there if they can get back to where they were. And, several years ago, they were going to a bowl game pretty regularly. If you look at UAB, you look at UTSA, you look at the commitment they're making. That's the other thing. We didn't take anyone who didn't make it clear to us that they're going to make that commitment financially, because they're going to have to come up to our level, and they will. And you look at, we took, a Charlotte, and Mike Hill is a tremendous AD. We also looked at the people who are running these, and I don't want to, how many, Ren Baker's an old friend of ours from Memphis, at North Texas. Mark Ingram's done a great job, obviously, at UAB. Joe Carlgard, a really great guy at Rice. And, you just look at others, I just think that Mike Hill, having worked for Jeremy Foley, knows what has to be done. And I think they have inspired leadership. I think it's really important that, we continue. Brian White at FAU has had a real vision for his team. I don't know if I left anyone out. We have, Oh, yeah, UTSA. Well, Lisa Campos, they've done a great job. And look at, they re-signed a coach who's been very successful, Jeff Traylor, and they really have great potential. So that's what we're doing. We're trying to make sure that the schools that come in can contribute, pretty quickly. And this league has a way of, there's a dynamic in this league. There's a certain DNA in this league where we're challengers. We want to compete at the highest level. I'm not arguing that we're not an unusual league. We are in that sense because we didn't have necessarily, a geographic base. But if you look at us now, we're kind of horizontally, geographically fairly cohesive. We've got some Eastern members, but, horizontally across, from Texas over to the East Coast. But Temple's probably our outlier, but they're in the mid-Atlantic. And then you look at other conferences and you get the Big Ten going from Nebraska to Rutgers. You've got, a vertical conference with, the ACC going from Syracuse all the way down to Miami. You got Washington going all the way down to Arizona in the Pac-12. So everybody's geographically pretty disparate. But I think we've got more cohesion than we had. And with 14 teams, I think we can build on that. And ultimately, don't sell us short. They sold us short 10 years ago. And I don't think, I think realistically, we way outperformed what people's expectations were. And I think we'll do the same thing. But we are losing 3 great teams. And again, I congratulate them for the great success they've had. But we're not losing them yet. They're going to be here for, possibly another 2 years or 1 year.
Mike, if I could piggyback off one of the last comments about the commitment by the schools, financially, specifically with Rice, smaller university, they're playing in a 70,000 or 50,000 seat stadium that's, I don't know, it's over 50 years old. When you were looking at schools to replace those that were leaving or to expand, did you require or did you ask for any type of assurances or in terms of how they would upgrade, that aspect of their athletic department?
Informal ones, Joseph, but nothing formally. And right, we didn't want to, you don't want to insult people either, and say, oh, you have to do X, Y, Z. We take them at their word, and we've gotten informal commitments that are, I think, really important. Also, you look at a school like Rice, and the academic quality is unsurpassed. We're an athletic conference, I understand that, but it also helps to have a great, academic pedigree, which we have with a lot of our schools. And our conference is a mix of really good regional and state universities and private schools like Tulsa, like SMU, like Rice now, or Naval Academy. Tulane, really high quality, smaller private schools, but also competed at a pretty high level in athletics, obviously. So yeah, that was, a lot of things went into it, but we did talk to them all about what is going to have to be done in our conference to compete at the highest level. And that's what we've done. It's not easy to do if you're us.
Obviously, there's no immediate deadline, so the impetus to do this might not be as strong as it was, a couple months ago. But is there any update on a potential new meeting of the College Football Playoff Management Committee?
Yeah, that's a great question, Joseph. You probably don't get me started. I'm really frustrated about what happened and disappointed. It was just so unnecessary in my view. And again, you could go back to what are the root causes of this. Bob Bowlesby, I think, summed it up pretty well. He said, if you don't want to do something, any excuse is as good as another. And we've heard a lot of different reasons why the 3 didn't want to do it. And some said, yeah, I was for it until I was against it. Others, had this 5+1 business, which is ridiculous. I've said it from the beginning, that working group did a good job, and it was a tough job. And I think they explained themselves well, and they settled on 12 as opposed to 8 because 8 it just doesn't have any traction. An 8-team playoff, you don't have enough at-larges. If you really look at the 6-6 model, the 12-team model, it reflects the NCAA tournament in terms of, the 32 automatics. It used to be 32 at-larges. Now it's 36. Point is, you have a mix between the automatics, which basically every tournament, every, playoff has, whether it's pro sports, amateur sports. And then you have a series of at-larges to make sure you get worthy teams. You know, the number of games is an issue, but it's not as big an issue as you might think. And we think that, you know, somebody having to play 2 more games and you'd have to play now to win a championship is probably going to be unlikely. This business about, well, we have to solve all the problems of college athletics before we can start a playoff. I mean, to me, that doesn't make any sense. And look, I respect the ACC. Jim Phillips is a really good friend. I sit next to him in all the meetings, and I respect Jim. And I like him personally. He's a great guy. We just have a disagreement. It's an honest disagreement. You know, again, it's not a personal thing, but we don't understand where they're coming from, because think about it. You know, these problems are going to be with us. This was an opportunity, and this is a sad thing. This was an opportunity for 800 players, student athletes to participate in a playoff as early as 24, 25. I mean, think about that. That's 8 more teams. Those kids, a lot of those kids will be long gone by the time a playoff starts and will never have that opportunity. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity. Ask our UCF kids how it felt in 2017 to be as good as they were and not have a shot, or 2018 and Houston in 2015 and even 16. And then look at Cincinnati 2 years ago when their team was equal to the team that made the playoff this year. Might have even been a little better. Who knows? You know, the point is they didn't have that opportunity. That's what this was all about, trying to give them an opportunity a little bit earlier, putting a playoff in place for 2026 and beyond, and then moving it up a little earlier. And finally, you know, right now we're in limbo. You know, we're sort of out in the wild blue yonder. We don't know when the next meeting is. Our presidents, I think, are still talking. We have a board of managers. Gerald Turner is our rep from SMU, and he does a terrific job. I don't know when the next meeting will be, but, you know, within another year or so, we're going to have to start seriously thinking about 26. And if we don't do anything, then there's no playoff at all after 25. And I don't really foresee that we're going to, you know, not have a playoff anymore. I don't think we'll take that step backward, but we could end up defaulting to 4 again. You know, Greg Sankey, who, you know, has been an ally of ours really on this, and I respect Greg and Bob for being strong proponents of 6+6 as opposed to this 5+1 nonsense. And I respect what they did on the working group. We have a strong majority that wanted to move ahead. It wasn't quite, you know, what we needed, but it was close. And in the end, we're going to have to meet pretty soon at some point, you know, to get this thing moving again, or we're going to default to 4, which the SEC has said they'd be fine with. They're dominating it now. But this would help everyone. Let's be honest. It's about inclusion. We only have about 3% of schools that play in this playoff. And, you know, it's football. So obviously you're not going to have as many opportunities as other sports. But still, you know, having a 12-team playoff does create that opportunity. I just read that Greg has said he's not sure that he'll still support the 4 champions getting the buys. It could be that he would support the top 4 teams getting a bye. I haven't talked to him yet about that, but I did see that recently. So I don't know where that's going, but you know, there's been some acrimony. There've been some, you know, some recriminations about, well, why didn't it happen? You won't see us doing that. And you know, we have a great respect for Mark Keenum, the chair at Mississippi State, and for the board of managers. I think they were frustrated with us that we couldn't get there. And we're all frustrated, I guess, period. But we just have to keep at it. We got to make sure that somehow we get this playoff in place in 26. And I hope it's 12. And I think it's 6-6. It has to be 6-6 because that's the only one that makes sense. You know, in my open letter, I'll close by saying in my open letter, which you probably have read, I said, look, this is like the Yankees Red Sox. You know, we don't give the American League East preferential treatment because, yeah, they've had the best record. They've had the most money. They spend the most money. They've got the best brands. But we don't say, well, the American League West isn't quite as good. You know, we don't think they're up to snuff. So therefore, we're not giving them a shot, but we're an automatic. But we're going to give the Yankees Red Sox division, the East division. Nobody does it that way. It's ridiculous to do it that way. It's one thing to have a bowl tie-in. And one of the we haven't had that. We've had to fight for that G5 slot, which we, by the way, 6 out of 8 years and 7 out of 9 if you count the year we were still in the BCS. We had to fight for that, but it's one thing to have a bowl tie-in. That's based on ratings potential. It's based on sponsorship potential. It's based on brand. It's based on attendance. That's not a playoff. A playoff is totally different. It's supposed to be fair. You're supposed to earn it. There's not supposed to be privilege before you even play it down or you shoot a basket. So that's what you know, what we're going to fight for, and that's something you know, that's something you fight for to the end because it's a really important principle.
Hey, am I curious if sort of the ongoing discord in Conference USA could have a scheduling impact in the league, teams potentially needing games in the near term, next couple of years?
Yeah, I don't think it will on us, no, because our six coming in understand that they would come in when they're, they're legally able to, when our other schools, lead. Now, could they come in with our other schools at some point? Yeah, they could. I mean, we could vote to do that, but we're not likely to do that. We think at this point, we told them when we were negotiating this that when the others left, and they would leave at the latest, they would leave by July 1, 24, maybe earlier than the others could come in. We would never do a schedule, obviously with them on it if they didn't have obviously the right to leave, or that we hadn't worked it out with our own conference as to how we wanted to do it. So I don't see that really being a problem for us. We have a schedule in place for 22, 23 that we know how we're going to operate there. We know that we've got our 11 teams. 23, 24, again, we don't know yet whether we're going to have, the new guys in at 14, whether we'll still be at 11 for one more year. That's probably the more likely thing if the other three don't leave. That's the best I can analyze it at this point.
Okay, we'll take a final question from Zoom from Eric Lopez, please.
Commissioner, good to talk to you again. Obviously, with all this comings and goings, this affects a lot of sports, in particular men's soccer and lacrosse. UCF has a men's soccer program, Cincinnati lacrosse. There's no lacrosse or men's soccer in the Big 12. Could they still be able to stay in the conference? Is that part of the negotiations? And also with the comings and goings, how does that impact schools that host conference championships? I know you had to make some changes this year. How will that affect moving forward?
First of all, the answer to your first question is yes. We would certainly entertain them staying in the conference for those sports. Again, we have great relationships with these schools, and we don't want to see them, in limbo or not have an opportunity to compete. And they're also, good schools, and we would certainly, and we're talking to them about that. John Cunningham and I spoke yesterday about their lacrosse program. In terms of UCF with soccer, I don't know where that stands right now, but we've been talking to, and there've been some other, we have some other affiliate relationships that come into play. And then, down the road, I don't know, what's going to happen, in terms of, that kind of, affiliate, relationship. I'm sorry, the second part of your question was what again? Just refresh.
Just about hosting conference championships, how that could be impacted.
Because we have a policy that you don't host if you're leaving the conference. Now we've made some exceptions to that, but the one thing we don't do, and we would never do, is deprive student athletes from a school that's leaving eventually from participating in our championships. They can absolutely participate in our championships. We've typically not had them, host championships if they were planning to leave. There's a policy around pretty much probably universal where once somebody's leaving, they're not really, part of a lot of the discussions because obviously there's a conflict of interest built in when they leave. They're going to another conference, and you're sharing information and that kind of thing. So, but we do everything we can to keep them as informed about everything, and we include them in a lot of important things, and anything that involves health and safety or competition, they're absolutely involved in. And at this point, the host, I don't know whether we would revisit that, but we've had a policy where you didn't host a championship if you were leaving, but we did make some exceptions to that over the years. And as far as competition, we welcome it and we don't take sides. We're thrilled with everybody. I couldn't have been happier for Cincinnati in the playoff, even though we know they're leaving, but having them make it in our conference just felt great for them. Feel great for what Houston's doing. Feel terrific. UCF's had some great success. So you try to just, again, try to put that off to the side and not even think about it.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for attending in both in person and via Zoom. Commissioner, I'm sure will be available for one-on-ones if anyone should need them during the course of the next 2 days.
Yeah, thank you, Chuck. And thanks again for everybody being here, showing interest in our conference. And thanks, Chuck, for all the work you do. And I see Morgan in the audience too. Morgan Uber's done a great job, hosting for our TV, and we appreciate the work that she's doing.